campus, save money, live better.
That's the quote.
That's the quote.
Are you ready, Lily?
Yes, bud.
Stab it up. Let's go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Chasing the Dream. I'm your host, Lily Rain Mihailovich. I'm a content creator, student. I work at a restaurant. I do a million things. And today we're featuring a guest, Rachel. This is my roommate that I met through a housing group. Rachel, introduce yourself very briefly.
Hi, everybody. My name's Rachel Harriman. I have moved to San Diego 3 years ago and now work as a scientist in a fancy lab. And in this last year, I met Lily through a Facebook housing group.
In 2023, we met.
Yeah.
In the springtime. So roughly a year ago, like 9 months-ish.
Yeah. And
today's episode, we're talking about the student housing crisis, and we're talking about so many different aspects of it. And we're focusing on San Diego because that's where we met. And the issue is very prominent here, especially around the SDSU area and La Jolla, where UCSD is, and a couple of private schools. Okay, so for the first part of the podcast, we're going to be talking about dorm life. But before we get into that, we're briefly going to talk about how we met as a result of not wanting to live in overpriced dorms. So Gigi and Rachel used to live together at UCSD, and then they put up a listing on Facebook that I stumbled across, and I genuinely did not think they were going to respond. And then Gigi responded, and turns out I thought it would be between me and like 10 other people they were going to interview. And I ended up finding out it was between me and this girl that was giving them an attitude and was really mean. So I secured the bag.
you definitely secured the bag because, so when we were interviewing people, the person before, she seemed nice and everything, but she was coming from like the boonies of America. I think it was like Indiana or something like that. And she just wanted to come to San Diego just to like experience something new, whatever. And me and Gigi were like, okay, that's one person. Let's talk to the next person. And then when we met you, you're like, oh, I want to go to school here. And we were just like, okay, so she has a purpose for being here, and she's not just here to like dilly-dally around and stuff like that.
And I told them I had a set job here. Like I was guaranteed a job when I came here, and I have very stable income. And I think I provided proof of income to Gigi, and she's like, you're good. Like, don't even worry about it. Like, this is for the landlord. This isn't for me.
Yeah. So when we met Lily, it was on like a FaceTime call. Yeah, a FaceTime call.
Yeah.
And
through Facebook Marketplace,
Yeah.
Gigi put up the listing. It was for like a den of an apartment, and it was so cheap, and that's why I reached out. Did you guys get a lot of people that messaged you for it?
there was a lot of people. So I don't know if I should talk about why we wanted to move from UCSD to that.
If you want to get into it briefly, that's fine. Yeah.
We got cussed out by the first girl we interviewed because we met Lily, and Lily was like such a sweetheart and so nice and like genuinely like seemed like a decent human being, and you weren't just like someone that's just like living on the edge.
You got to throw around the dad jokes when you want something.
Not wrong at all.
I told him, I was like, I'm immigrant and I clean. So
Yes. And so we kind of knew Lily was an instant yes because you just like matched our vibe, and like you genuinely didn't come off as like a strange individual.
And see, it's kind of funny because I signed the lease, but I never read the lease, and I didn't see the place in person, which everybody told me I was so dumb for. But my intuition told me that you guys were really genuine as well. I was like, I don't need to see the place because Gigi sent me very thorough videos. And through the FaceTime call, I just figured, you know, we're all kind of in our 20s and just looking for places to live. Like, you guys don't have malicious intentions of taking my money or something, or showing me the wrong room, and then I get there and it's something totally different. So in America, college students move out for the first time when they're 18, and typically they don't know how to cook, how to clean, and kind of function as adults in society. So they're thrown into these dorms that they're forced to live in, and a lot of colleges require it just because they want the students to become very accustomed to the campus and socialize with people their age, and then eventually mingle into fraternities and sororities and just participate in on-campus life, essentially. But if you're a transfer student, so if you go to community college for 2 years and then transfer to a college with 60 credits, you don't have to live in a dorm, which is why I didn't live in a dorm. Rachel didn't live in a dorm. Did Gigi ever live in a dorm?
She did.
Gigi lived in a dorm.
She, for the first year at UCSD.
Yeah, so some colleges require 2 years for you to live on a dorm, and sometimes it's just 1. And that first year, they also don't let you bring a car, which I think is kind of crazy. I guess to add on to the reason why students aren't allowed to have cars, just because the parking lots will be super full if the freshmen could bring their really nice fancy cars, you know, from out of state. But also, college towns are built to be walkable, and they're the only walkable towns in America. And I wish we had more of them, but it's walkable because they want students to be able to mingle and kind of go around and do everything really quickly. Like you could go to the gym, get your groceries, and go print something out at UPS, like all in at once, super quickly. You get a lot done in one day, which is really cool, and that's kind of the beauty of walkable towns. What's your experience with walkability at UCSD?
So UCSD, if from the perspective on if you like live on the campus and stuff like that, I will say it did get better probably in my last year at UCSD, so in 2021. They essentially opened a Target actually on campus.
Oh, wow.
A whole one-story Target. It had everything you needed. It mostly had actually groceries, considering like, you know, students live there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But as far as like walking, UCSD is an enormous campus. Like, I don't know how big like SDSU is, but to literally get from one side of campus to the other could take like an hour, depending on walking. And like sometimes I would like go from class to class with like a 10-minute break in between, and you would hardly be able to make the class just from how like spaced out the whole campus is.
Yeah.
It's not like congested where there's like building upon building upon building. It's more like spread out. There's a whole bunch of walking areas.
What else did they have besides the Target? Like, did they have restaurants and little stores and stuff?
So they had like, so with UCSD, I don't know if the audience is like aware of how it is, but there's colleges that are encompassed under this one massive college. So UCSD is a massive college, and there's these little like micro communities of other mini colleges. So like for instance, I was from the Revelle College, and each like mini college has restaurants. So they have a whole bunch, and they have like a big cafeteria too, typically, where you can eat and do whatever. And they usually have like a coffee shop. Some were nicer than others,
so
obviously.
Each mini college is specific to certain majors.
Yeah. So also that's another thing, depending on your major. Not always the case for like generalized like majors, like psychology and stuff like that, but like each college has their like specialty. So like Jacobs was like engineering, so anything with engineering was for that college.
Gotta go hang out there and find my husband.
I'm like,
anyways, continue.
no men are worth it.
You're right,
doesn't
you're
matter
right.
if they're engineers or
Yeah,
not. I'm like,
but they have money, so
yeah, I guess that's a pro. But anyway, and Revelle was mostly chemistry, so I went to Revelle. Chemistry and physics was mostly Revelle, and then there was I don't remember that like each one because I didn't really care about the other ones. But anyway, so yeah, I mean it was there was a lot of gyms actually on our campus too.
Oh,
so
like mini gyms or
so compared, I don't know how like SDSU is, but there's one really big gym called the Remax Center, and in the Remax Center you have everything you need. Like it is a 2-story gym where there's like this weight area, and then the second floor is like where you go on treadmills and do more cardio stuff. And they even had like a, what is it called? Not tennis, but it's in like a box.
Racquetball?
Yeah,
or something?
racquetball. Yeah, they had racquetball. They had even classes and stuff like that. So that was one of the gyms, and it was ginormous. But if you think about it, a lot of people would go to this gym, and it was packed like crazy. Like it was like sardines. Like you could not get a machine. Like you had to go like free weight everything.
Yeah. So I guess with this is the difference between different types of American colleges. Some colleges, all the students share one gym or they share a dining hall, but then other colleges, they're so spread out that they have to have multiple gyms in order to accommodate, I guess, how many students are on campus, how wide it is, and just the area that it covers. SDSU is a little bit smaller. I believe we don't have that many colleges, and each college does not have its own dining hall. We all eat in the center of campus. It's kind of like the center where student life is. Near the library, they have a bunch of food options. They have a student union where there's a bunch of resources for commuters. Students work on campus. and then the library, bookstore, and then where you can get snacks and stuff is all one place. But they do have another place for snacks all the way on the other end of campus, but nothing else. It's not like they have mini gyms. But then apartment complexes or freshman dorms kind of, they have mini gyms inside there, but it's kind of what you pay for with the rent essentially.
Yeah. So any like amenities that you could use as a student were practically free just because you paid tuition.
Like there's pools and, you know, places to practice sports that as long as they're not being used by a team, the students could use them, which is super cool.
Yeah. That was a nice thing about UCSD was like there was access to a lot of things like if you lived on campus, but it's money.
But it comes with a cost if you do decide to live on campus, which I get really jealous of the people that live on campus when I hang out on campus too much because I see how walkable and fun this place is. But what comes with such a walkable place with so much ease, I guess, and accessibility is a really fat price tag. So I'm going to put up graphics on the screen. At UCSD per academic year, which is 9 months, the cheapest residence dorm hall to live with 2 other people, so a triple, 3 people living together stacked on top of each other like sardines, is $14,000 and 160 cents. At SDSU, that same housing option is $18,469, and both of these plans do not include meal plans, which are also required. And it is so steep. This is crazy.
How is it that expensive? Like if you break that down, that's almost like $1,500 to $2,000 per month to live in the same room with people. Do you know how insane that is?
And it's a really small, it's the size of a living room. And then the ceiling is like kind of high. Yeah. It's a little bit higher just because it accommodates bunk beds that are slightly taller, because below the bunk beds, there will be a little desk or something.
You know, I'm very grateful I never had to do like 3 people in a room. I think I'd lose my mind.
So I had a friend at UCLA who transferred, and they guaranteed transfer housing if you wanted to pay for it. And she didn't mind paying for it because she didn't want to get a whole apartment in Los Angeles, which is very valid. And she went with that, but she's very introverted and she wanted to just do the cheapest option. But even with the cheapest option, you can get very unlucky with roommates, and it's so hard living stacked on top like that. I did a summer camp. I was like 14. I lived with one other person. She was this like Jesus freak, like Bible study every morning. She went to church. She was funny. But no, she was like so into it. It was kind of scary to live. Like she had a cross on the wall, and then she lived with an atheist, like out of all people. Like I would see her pray before she ate, like everything. And
that's a little
I lived with one other, like in one room, and even that felt really congested because you have to get accustomed to kind of watching each other change and kind of like make little meals. Like you're there almost all day with them unless they are super social, but they do eventually come back to sleep, you know?
No, I when I first moved out of my house when I was 18, while I was in community college, I moved in to a double, so I was like living with someone in the same room. And I will say, like, it depends on your schedule, like how well, like, or how much time you'll spend there.
How compatible you guys will be.
Because like realistically, like for me, I like worked almost full time when I went to school, and I did classes, and then I studied on top of that, and like I was almost never home. Like I kid you not, I literally would leave at like 8 in the morning and would be back at like 10, 11 at night.
Yikes.
So I never really got to like stay home and like get to know people because I was just always busy.
No, I was the same way. Yeah. Or when you're moving in with someone, that's a really big thing to discuss is, do our schedules align? Like, do you work at night? Do you work in the morning? Are you going to be coming home drunk on the weekends and like making a ruckus all the time? I also want to get into how much the meal plans are. So I didn't pull it up for, I mean, we kind of have it pulled up for UCSD. Yeah. So the blue plan. So for one academic year, it's $4,100 in dining dollars and a $50 cash bonus. And that's for the very basic plan. You're probably only eating twice a day. These basic plans, you guys, they only think you're hungry twice a day. Like no snacks in between. And then, oh, you know what's so funny about that is dining halls in America, they will not let you take food from the halls.
Yeah.
They have like the police in there. They're like, you cannot like, take anything.
They're like, you're under arrest.
You cannot even bring a backpack.
You're fired from this
university. Can't bring a little snack bag and take carrots back. It is that extreme.
It is that extreme, but also if you know how to play the game,
that's true.
You could get some free stuff. Yeah. Like I was thinking, like, you know, so how like these dining dollars usually work if you are getting food at a dining hall is it's kind of like buffet style. I don't know how it was like yours, but like
that's how most of them are. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like unlimited food, eat as much as you want for that like one meal.
Mm-hmm. And I just can't take anything out.
No.
You know, reheat it later.
No, I was like thinking, like my intrusive thought was like this would be really good for someone who's like bulking or something like that, like while working out, because you could eat like,
or someone that's fasting, like intermittent fasting. That's actually that's a good deal.
Yeah.
But then at SDSU, this same meal plan for 9 months is $5,800, and essentially the SDSU breaks it down to $31.50 of allowance per day in case you go and use it at a Chipotle or a Starbucks, so you know how your funds are distributed essentially. But then I also did a calculation if, like, just for a year's worth of food, if you spend $100 a week, which I think is kind of average for like a single adult living alone who has a full keep in mind access to a full kitchen, it would be $5,200 for 365 days out of the year. And for 9 months, they're charging $4,100 at UCSD, and at SDSU they're charging $5,800 for 9 months worth of food. That is highway robbery on God.
I think what's like also scary about that is the fact that like, yes, they charge you all this money, but another issue that I've seen with these meal plans, like if you don't use every dollar of this, it doesn't get like recycled over to the next period. Yeah. So it stays only for that term of the time that you're in class. So let's say at the end of the year when you like the what is it called? The school session's over? Or like
when the academic year ends.
When the academic year ends. There we go, thank you. The academic year ends. If you have extra money, I've seen people like go crazy and just buy stuff just so they could spend the money, because with dining dollars and stuff like that, it's not like a refundable thing, and it will not transfer over. And I've literally seen people have like $1,000 or $2,000 left over.
Yeah, or I guess some people who might want to eat 3 times a day, but then they tried to buy the cheapest plan possible. They run out of swipes, and they're kind of freaking out. Like, I spent all this money, and like I just had to pay my rent and stuff. Like, this is so expensive, you know. And I don't have access to a full kitchen, so they tend to eat out a lot, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I did an internship 2 years ago, and it was on a fairly walkable campus at the Johns Hopkins University. I didn't live in a dorm, but I lived on-campus student apartments, and I had one roommate. She was really sweet. She was a military brat, and she was literally the cleanest person I've ever lived with. And what I liked about living here was when I got there, I'd never lived in a walkable town ever. Like, I've always driven my car around since I was 16. And it was so cool to be able to walk outside of my apartment, go to the gym, get groceries, go to the library, make copies, do homework. You could just knock out so many things in one day. You could go send mail home. You could go to the bookstore and buy clothes or something. Like, there was just so many things you could do in one day. And it just made it really quick. And I had more time to maximize doing homework, essentially, and, like, you know, calling my parents or something, which was really nice, versus now that I live off campus, and I've always lived an off campus life pretty, like, essentially, it takes so much time to do everything because your doctor is on one side of town, and then you have to pick up your dry cleaning on the other side, but then there's traffic between certain times of the day. And then what if you need to go do something, like, you might have an interrupted activity in your day, perhaps, like you didn't expect a medical problem to come up, and now you're trying to go see a doctor before you go to work, or you might have to delay something. And it's just really hard living in a town that isn't walkable. Even San Diego, it is kind of walkable in some parts, but for the most part, this is not.
No, San Diego, transportation-wise, is not, like, a good, like,
some
it
places
depends.
Are better than others.
It's, like, sub-portions of San Diego are okay. Like, near UCSD, transportation, immaculate. Like, there is literally a bus almost on every single street in La Jolla.
Or there's that mall that has a bunch of stuff. Like, they have a gym. and restaurants.
UTC?
UTC Mall.
Yeah, so UTC Mall, like that area, they have like a humongous like bus stop, and then the trolley station ends there. But as far as like UCSD, like you could live off campus, but if you lived in La Jolla off campus, like you typically were fine getting to class because like to get to class was like a 20-minute bus ride over.
Oh, yeah.
But once you step out of La Jolla, out of that bubble of UCSD, it's not good transportation. Like literally to get from like La Jolla maybe to Convoy, it's like what, a 15-minute drive, maybe 20-minute drive, if traffic maybe 30. Like the transportation to get there, like if you wanted to take a bus is like, I don't know, an hour,
Oof,
hour and a half. And that's not even far. You know?
And then the students have to pay for the trolley pass, you know, not to mention like the bus passes and all that.
No, UCSD it's all free if you're a UCSD student.
Oh,
yeah.
What? They make us pay for it here.
What?
Yeah, we have to pay for our trolley passes. And then they make it cheap for like a certain amount of time, and then they'll mark it up if you don't buy it in time. Yeah, no, seriously.
Damn, they're really like running you guys through. Holy crap.
Well, I think it's because the CSU system, they're like, oh, because your tuition is so cheap, we're going to run you dry for everything else. We're going to charge you a lot for parking. You have to pay for your bus pass. You have to pay for your trolley pass. But then if you live near a trolley stop, sometimes apartment complexes that kind of go through the school and stuff and operate through certain property management companies will give you a free bus pass. You know what I mean? But you're already paying so much in rent that it's, I don't know. It kind of equates to being the same thing.
At UCSD, it was kind of nice. Some of the apartments near the university had like a little transportation service.
Oh, wow.
Where they would drop you off at campus because it's like a 5-minute drive
some of
over.
the apartment complexes do that. They have a big bus and then, or a shuttle. And
Yeah,
then they
there
say,
we go, shuttle.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, we give rides to campus between these times.
Yeah.
So if you work or, you know, whatever you need to get to class, you can just plan out your day, and it's kind of cool.
But that also comes at the cost of La Jolla is expensive as hell. So
yeah, like one of the most expensive neighborhoods in California.
like expensive, like I'll talk about that later. Like beyond expensive.
When I was first thinking about moving here, I toured this apartment complex that was off campus, but it had a shuttle that took us to San Diego State, and it was kind of sponsored by the university. Kind of like the university worked with this apartment complex because of the shuttle service that they provided to the campus. And the students could go for free, you know, like the university kind of like paid the shuttle driver or whatever. So that was kind of my incentive to live there, was it's kind of sponsored by the university. It's really close by. I don't have to use my car as much. And I found it on Facebook. These 3 girls were looking for a 4th roommate. So they had 4 at the time, but then one of the girls was moving out. So then I would have been the 4th roommate. They were really nice, but when I got there, 2 of the girls went to San Diego State, and one of them went to a community college. And I was like, this is not fair that they're letting anyone live here at this discounted rate. It was about $1,100. Every roommate paid a different price because of the size of the room. It kind of depends on if your apartment has a window or if you have no windows. It's kind of weird, you guys. It was like one room, and there was a flex wall, so you could hear your roommate. It was so dumb. Like, I don't like flex wall apartments.
What the hell is a flex wall?
It's like not a real wall. It's kind of like the wall doesn't go all the way to the ceiling. It's like 2 feet from the ceiling, so you could kind of hear everything that your roommate's doing. It's kind of dumb.
Stinky.
But I just did not think that was fair.
Yeah.
You know, that anybody could apply to live there, which everyone should be allowed to apply to affordable housing. But if this is sponsored by the university, if the university has dealings with this apartment complex, it should just be for university students, because that girl going to community college is taking a place away from a San Diego State student, you know, when she could live somewhere near the community college, you know.
I had no clue that this was even like a thing. Like, I didn't know that, because like at UCSD you strictly have to be a student. Like, they will verify that, check that, like 100, like they will not allow like a community college.
No, we have a lot of apartment complexes around here that don't check. And I just don't think it's fair. Like, very rarely will like a community college kid live here, or maybe someone in their like late 20s who just wants cheaper rent, but I just don't think it's fair.
No, it's not fair if the university is investing money into this and then it's not going to like the
like, it's marketed as an apartment complex from the university. Yeah. And then they're just letting anyone come in. I did not think that was fair at all.
No, because then it's like, where is the money that you're paying a lot of going to?
Exactly.
You know, like, because then you have to start thinking of like, is this a waste of money? Like,
I've toured so many apartments. I've seen everything in San Diego. I've toured stuff in downtown, by the border, college area, Fashion Valley. I've seen everything, and I didn't enjoy how unfair some of the college housing was, for sure.
Yeah.
I chose to not live in college housing because I don't like the fact that they're near a lot of public transportation, just because there are a lot of sketchy people who take public transportation. Granted, during the day by the college area, it's just college students for the most part taking public transportation.
Yeah.
But because it is so cheap and anyone can kind of jump on, it leads to a lot of issues, especially on the red line trolley. That's what it's called in San Diego, right?
Yeah,
the red line trolley.
Yeah.
It's literally a red trolley. So for the second part of the podcast, we're going to be touching on off-campus housing, because what else would be the solution to unaffordable dorms? Living off campus, which is what a lot of kids do. So we live in an apartment complex in North Park. It's a very central part of San Diego. It has access to the 5 and like major freeways, all the trendy stuff that you see online, and it's near Balboa Park, and just everything is there. It is purely, we move there, location purpose.
Yeah.
But the management is not great. However, I've heard worse things and like safety issues from students that live in apartment complexes sponsored by the university, because they are near the trolley, and we don't live by the trolley. We live in a very quiet part of San Diego. Most of San Diego has planes flying over it. We don't have issues with crime. Like, people aren't really doing sketchy things around our apartment, versus my friend Lily lives at an apartment complex really close to the trolley here. Yeah, her name is also Lily.
Okay.
And there's a lot of people who get off the trolley, and this apartment complex is known for break-ins.
Yeah. So another thing commonly associated with like university areas is break-ins.
High crime rates. Because it's like supposedly an affordable neighborhood.
No, a lot of students, or not students, like these university areas, the reason why there's a lot of like window break-ins and stuff like that is because a lot of students have expensive stuff. So like in La Jolla, there's like one of the most common things is window break-ins into cars, because if you see a backpack in a car, there's most likely going to be like a MacBook in there with like an iPad.
Like, college students usually have computers and expensive like headphones and stuff on them.
And that's one of the perks of living off campus, especially if like, not a perk, it's actually kind of sad.
You're less prone to that type of crime.
Yeah. Just because like, not to stereotype, but just students have more fancy gadgets than just the average Joe.
Yeah, and like universities loan us things too, you know, and like we need them in order to do school.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of tough, like safety wise, because you want to go somewhere that's affordable and safe, and you want to give your parents a peace of mind that you're going to be okay, you know, and like they're not anxious back home about you and stuff. But also, like, you need to feel safe without paying a lot of money, you know, for a luxury apartment, because most college students can't afford that.
Yeah.
But then this leads into, we live in a very reasonable apartment. Like, we all have our own space in here, but Rachel used to live in a place that was overcrowded. Tell them how much you were paying in the area and all that.
So in La Jolla, so long story short, the reason why I all of a sudden had to move to this really expensive place was because our previous landlord was like, hey, I'm going to renovate the apartment because it was so run down. And he's like, you need to get out of here in XYZ amount of time. And I was like, that's only like 1 month. How am I going to find time for that? And so in like a desperate attempt to just get like any type of housing, because here with off-campus housing, there is like housing group pages and stuff like that. And you could be messaging so many people, but not a lot of people will actually respond back to you.
Yeah.
And
that's why I didn't think you guys were going to respond to me.
Because if you think about it, like one post on like an off-campus housing like group, what, they get like maybe like 30, 40 messages? There's
hundreds of thousands of students in these groups. Yeah. So realistically, 400,000 people aren't going to see one post.
Yeah.
But definitely over 1,000 people are going to see that post.
Yeah.
And people are on there because they're actively looking for housing.
Yeah.
And then when you're not looking for housing, you leave the groups.
Yeah.
So these posts get so many impressions, so many messages. and it's just really hard to find a place to live, especially when it's peak season.
Yeah.
Or off peak. Even off peak, it's impossible to find housing in San Diego. Like, too.
Yeah.
You have to look right when you're ready to move. You can't
Exactly.
look in advance,
Exactly.
which makes it really hard to plan, especially if you're in out of state, if you're coming from a couple cities away like I did in LA.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference. You can't plan ahead.
No. Exactly. So when like my landlord gave us that notice, I started looking for places, and one of the places I considered not going to. I wanted to check the place out in person first just to make sure that people are normal, it's normal. The first place I went to was this place in what's right up from La Jolla? Just before
Del Mar?
just before Convoy.
I don't know.
That strip.
Linda Vista?
Is it
Something like that.
I don't know. Anyway,
That area above La Jolla.
The area, yeah, above La Jolla. Long story short, I went there and I didn't know how like bad the apartment was, because like sometimes in these like group postings, like they make things seem so much nicer than what they actually are.
Yeah,
or
you have to street view things, and you have to tour a place to get an idea of how it actually is.
Yeah.
You know?
And this place I went to, the first place I went to, it was gonna be like $900 for this like one room, which wasn't bad for like the area. And I go there. Tell me why. So if there's one pet peeve I have with any type of house that I move into, is animal smells.
Oh.
Like, I am someone who cannot stand smells.
Yeah.
And I go into this place and it's just like, it just smells straight like urine of an animal. Because long story short, these people use like a sunroom as like a place to hold their dogs. So it smelled entirely like animals. And I was like, I'm not doing that. So then I found my last place kind of on accident. I mean, I went to go interview with them, and then that's when I met Gigi for the first time. And we all just got along. Like, we could talk to each other. I think that's like one of the most important things when you move off campus is like, there's a lot of situations where people move off campus and people aren't like talkative towards each other. They just like exist commonly.
Or it's kind of different on FaceTime and in person too. Yeah. But we all, you know what's funny about the three of us is we love to talk. Like, we will talk all day. We don't stop.
It's called having ADHD. Like, all of us have.
But like, we got along really easy. Like, we could talk forever.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you could talk to people on FaceTime, but then when you talk to them in person, it's really different.
Yeah.
You know, like, some people are very comfortable on camera and stuff, and then in person there's more socially awkward.
Yeah.
It's just hard to find housing because you have to make an effort to meet people in person, to see the place in person. And it's hard when you're coming from out of state, you're coming from somewhere that's further, or you're just busy and you had an interrupted issue in finding like housing. You know what I mean? Like, you guys were told very last minute that you need a new place to live, and you had to scramble and find a bunch of people to live together because the rent was egregious.
Yeah. And then when I finally met with Gigi and was able to actually get like an offer for the place, it was, I mean, granted, it was the only place that did accept me, but now that I think about it, it was very overpriced for what we were like paying. It was $3,600 for a 2-bed, 1-bath, and the one bathroom was shared between 4 people. Do you know how rough that is?
You guys were in prison.
And we're all girls. Like, all of us. So
that's
hair,
really bad.
Hair everywhere.
I feel like it's just, for college students, like, everybody should have their own bathroom.
Dude.
I don't think that's too much to
No,
ask
it
for.
was rough. Like, when one of us got our period, everyone got their period. Like,
oh my, that's really funny, actually.
like, no, and I mean, it was great. Like, the company was great there, but as far as like the place itself, it wasn't good. And another issue with off-campus housing that's commonly seen. So a lot of like university areas, the landlords, you could complain about issues and stuff like that, but if it's not an immediate issue, like, they will not attend to it. So like, let's say,
unless it becomes a dire emergency and you go to the freaking city and report it.
Yeah. So you want to talk about overcrowded housing. My first year I ever moved out of my house, like, as soon as I was 18, I was like, freedom, I'm out. Like, not
taking anything she could get.
Literally, I did not want to deal with the chaos of my family. So I was like, deuces, I'm out. So then I moved to this one apartment in Davis, California. It was a 4-bedroom, kind of like a townhouse. It was a really tall apartment.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a townhouse, but it was like elevated ceilings, everything super fancy in that sense.
Like a mid-rise?
Kind of, yeah. And between the 4 bedrooms, there was 8 girls living in this place, and it was 2 bathrooms, which wasn't horrible. So 4 people per bathroom.
That's still
a lot.
Yeah.
So imagine living with 8 girls. Do you know how rough that is? Like, not only like are we all crazy busy with college and stuff like that, but like we had one kitchen. It was not ginormous. We had to share that all throughout.
Wait, 8 people shared a fridge?
Yeah.
You're lying.
8 people
like
shared a
standard
fridge.
Size fridge.
A standard fridge. Do you know how like you can't do anything with that? And then the one nice thing I did like about this place is I had the laundry inside.
Okay.
So I was like, Epidemis is out. This isn't too bad, you know? But the other thing now that I look back on it, like I would never live with 8 people again. That was so rough because I lived as a double with my housemate.
That sounds like you lived in female prison.
Yeah, kind of. It wasn't that bad though. Like genuinely, because I was
2 people dude, that's literally prison. Like 2 people live in one room.
But the rent was cheap. Not gonna lie. But this was also pre-COVID price.
Oh, okay.
So like the 4-bedroom apartment, I think it was.
How much did you pay?
I paid personally like $450 a month.
Oh wait, that's actually pretty fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the whole place itself was like $3,500 for the 4-bedroom place.
Okay.
But this was pre-COVID price, so
Yeah.
take it with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
That place is probably like I don't know 4,000.
So that was your first experience living in an overcrowded apartment.
And it wasn't horrible. Like the people were nice and stuff like that. It's just like I think the issue becomes with like massive apartment complexes like this one was. Is I don't know, you have neighbors and they could, not that we had crazy neighbors or anything like that, but
because so many people are in one place,
parking was not horrible, but also not a lot of students or not a lot of the people we lived with had cars.
So that made it easier.
Yeah. And what else was the pain with this place? We didn't really have maintenance issues. Actually, we did have one maintenance issue one time.
Then how was it resolved?
One time during Christmas, because I was the only one that stayed home because I lived in Davis, but everyone else lived somewhere else. And the toilet, like, I don't know what the hell happened. Like, I spent the day with my family, and then I come back home, and this like toilet is like the water is bubbling up.
That's crazy.
And I was like, I haven't even been home all day. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Who did this? You know? And apparently, like one of the pipes had burst or something like that, and I didn't know this. So that like I was like, I don't even know who to call. Nowhere's open. It's Christmas Day.
Oh.
And
okay, yeah.
and then I call like the emergency line for our apartments. Someone answered.
That's good. That's
compared
good.
to our current place. And they like fixed it the day of, but like all other issues, not really.
Yeah.
Another overcrowded experience I recently most had was the place we lived before our current place. 2-bedroom, 1 bath, 4 people, $3,600.
That sounds like a disaster.
That's $1,800 per room. And I don't really understand how with off-campus housing, like in La Jolla, how they could get away with prices like that, to be honest. Because you can't realistically expect a student to pay $1,800 a month, like on their own. You know what I mean? With no like parental support or anything like that.
What's crazy about that is each of you paid $900, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, like way pre-COVID, pre-recession and all that, you could get a 2-bedroom for like $850 a month.
No, you literally could go to like Arkansas even right now and be paying like, I don't know, $600-700 for 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, but I mean, even California back in the day was like less than $1,000 for a 2-bedroom, and now it's turned into you got a room with another person for $900. I just don't think that's fair.
That's enough. Like
that should be more than enough money for you to live comfortably.
You know what's crazy? So that's $3,600. Okay, that's not luxury.
Yeah,
that's not even luxury. What we had was like basic necessities. Like we didn't
World War I.
We didn't even have like air conditioner, heater. We had a heater, but not air conditioning. Our kitchen was so tiny. You literally bump butts with people. Like not.
It was like a skinny kitchen.
Yeah. And then our like our washer and dryer was in the bathroom, like physically. Like you had to close one door to open the other. Like very crammed.
Oh, yeah. So someone's taking a shower, but you can't go to your laundry.
Yeah. It was just not at all like
Ideal.
a luxurious apartment in the sense of like for $3,600.
That's like $3,600 is what some people pay for like a luxury apartment, you know, and that, wow. It's because of the area. It's because of the location.
Yeah.
And people have to pay this price because they go to UCSD.
Yeah. Well, there are some students that could pay for very luxurious like housing. Like,
yeah.
If you know.
So we are going to talk about luxury student apartments, but before that, we're going to talk about scam housing and how the reason why it's so hard to find housing is because every listing on Facebook Marketplace, on Craigslist, apartments.com, anything that is a reasonable price, like under $1,000, maybe even $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 is a scam.
Yeah.
And you don't know that because you don't know until you can contact the landlord. So pretty much like, let's say you find something that's affordable for $1,000. You reach out to the person on Facebook and then they'll either tell you, oh, let's schedule a viewing, or this is where the scam comes in. You don't even have to meet them in person, know it's a scam. They say, oh, I need to know it. Like, I need to get your credit score through this website. But then you show them proof, like from your bank, like a FICO screenshot. Oh, my credit score is like 800. And they're like, no, I need your credit score generated through this website. And they make money through that. And it's a scam because you put in your information, you get a charge to your card to generate the credit score. So that's how you know immediately this is a scam. If they send me that link, you block them. But all the affordable posts like on these websites, they send you those links and you have to generate your credit score in order to tour it.
I think another big scam that is common, there's like two big scams that are commonly seen, at least in San Diego, is you'll have these like international, like if you could tell straight up like on their profile picture that this person's not real. Like they'll have the most like bizarre name ever and a picture of like a white woman named Linda on there. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that is whatever your name is, that's not you. There's
like,
no
it doesn't line up. People don't even try and hide the fact that they're scamming.
Or and then you look on their profile like in general and they're like from like someplace in like Africa and you're just like, why are you posting here, you know?
Yeah, why are you putting a listing in San Diego?
So that's like one type of scam, and then the second type of scam is people ask immediately before like you even view the place or even ask like really any questions, is they'll be like, if you want to see this place you need to pay like $30 or $40 like immediately, and if you really want the place you need to put down the deposit. And this is before like you're even like talking over anything really.
They start laying out all these rules and you're like, oh, this is a scam.
Yeah.
But then you're like, oh, well, why don't I go through, you know how sometimes people will have an extra room or a granny flat behind their house? It's like a family like renting out an extra room to like a college student. Like, oh, we could rent this out and get an additional $900 a month.
Yeah.
You don't know if those are scams either because they're not a formal like landlord per se. It's just a family, like you're trusting that they're renting the place out to you. It's not, there's no property management and whatnot. So it's like, yeah, that stuff might be cheaper, but it's 10 times riskier than going through a property management company and going through a formal landlord. You could get there and get scammed. Yeah. You know, so it's really hard to find housing down here because of how many scams there are. And, you know, like there are landlords who are flat out like, I'm not going to let you see it in person. You need to give me some money beforehand. And it's like, well, obviously this is a scam. But the only thing that isn't a scam is luxury student housing because they plaster this. They have excellent social media. They put it on billboards. They put it on signs. It's advertised like all throughout San Diego. It's on Instagram. Like, you know, it exists, but you get to the website and this is just astronomical. Like $2,500 a month these are starting at for like studio or one bedroom. And these places remain vacant.
Yeah. Yeah. In La Jolla, there's this really fancy apartment that's actually within UTC. I forget the name of the apartment name.
It's in the mall?
It's in the mall. Huh. It's like directly next to the mall. It's the closest thing. Like,
is it like a high rise or something?
Yeah, it's a high rise. And I remember just for funs and giggles, like looking up the cost of like a studio or something.
Yeah.
A studio apartment was like $2,900. Studio, no bedroom. And
wow, it's probably like a north facing apartment too. Like there's no light coming in.
No, there was light. It was all like windowed.
No, but I mean, it depends on like people want like south facing apartments because that's where the sun rises.
Yeah.
But then you could live in a luxury apartment complex, but if it's the not facing towards the sun, it just you get really bad lighting throughout most of the day.
Yeah.
But people like they always charge more for apartments because of the view and the direction that the windows are in. Isn't that crazy? Like not everything is the same price.
I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah, no, literally like apartments in downtown will charge more for a place that's
the light hits different.
East facing and south facing because of the sunset and the sunrise views.
But I think with this place that I'm mentioning was
it was just expensive flat out.
No, and like freaking cracks me up every time. I literally can't think. I think it's called the Axiom, something like that. I don't even know. And sometimes on like the UCSD housing page that they have for off-campus housing, someone will like post a room for rent from there, and I'm just like, the views look nice. Don't get me wrong; they're spectacular because you have like you could see because it's elevated, right? You could see like the beautiful like La Jolla and stuff like that. But I've seen rooms like that, and they're like $2,000 per room, and you're just like, holy crap! Like, granted, this place that people are renting from are like solid in the sense of like renting, like they're not going to scam you or anything like that. But the scam is just luxurious living.
And luxurious living marketed towards college students. That should never even be a thing, or it shouldn't be as popularized as it, because it's everywhere. Like you drive onto a campus and you see a bunch of these luxurious complexes that maybe 5 people live in. Yeah. Because most college students don't make that kind of money. Yeah. Granted, there are students that are, and we should have housing for them, but that shouldn't be the only housing available. And that's kind of the issue with it.
Well, also with really luxurious student housing, I feel like it targets only people who come from wealthy families. Yeah. Like, for instance, this apartment I'm telling you about, like, I saw, because I lived right across the street from it, too. So I was like, I would see people, like, walk around and stuff like that. And I would see so many people with really nice cars come out of there that look like, not to generalize, but, like, an international student or something like that. Like, I've literally seen, like, a Lamborghini pull out of there. And I'm just like, sorry. No, you're good. I'm like, how? Like, how do I get that money? I mean, that's never going to happen, but, like, the thing is, like, those people have to be really rich in order to be able to afford
and they're
stuff
paying
like
for these luxury apartment complexes on top of tuition, on top of, like, their bougie lifestyle and, all that. And they're, like, not really working, which, I mean, it is nice. Like, don't get me wrong. If I was living that life, must be nice. Yeah. But just to advertise so much of that housing and to have it remain vacant because it's unaffordable, like, isn't fair to the majority of students who need something that's reasonable.
Yeah. But I also feel like here in San Diego, I don't feel like there's a lot of vacant housing. I think it's just people will take whatever and pay the price
there's
for whatever. There's a lot
of vacant housing in downtown.
You think so?
There's a lot of luxury apartment complexes that they're not even halfway full because nobody can afford it. Like, everything has become that unaffordable. Holy crap. New York City is known for that. Those like Billionaires Row? Actually, Billionaires Row is like not even half full.
I heard that New York, so during the peak of COVID, right, they like increased price or tried to increase prices, but everyone, because New York was like the COVID hotspot, like they had to start decreasing prices in rent.
Yeah, because everybody left. Yeah. Nobody was paying it.
That might happen to San Diego.
I hope not, because it's really pretty here. Yeah. And I love our pre-COVID price. Yeah. And then the third type of housing would be, so I know the most about this because this is the most popular type of housing around San Diego State, is when college students will rent out like a 5 or 6 bedroom house. And some of them are done through like mini property management companies, or there's like someone with a bunch of money who like bought 3 houses and then they're kind of their own landlord and they deal with the college students directly. So yeah, like a group of girls, guys, like whoever, sometimes people do co-ed housing. It's just like a friend group or something, or most commonly like transfer students will meet on Facebook groups and then they go and they hang out. They have a little beach day together and they see if they're compatible as like, okay, can we be roommates for 9 months? So they'll sign these like 9-month leases and go through their own property management stuff and they rent out a house. And these houses are kind of known as like frat row area type thing, like where everybody parties, because there is like fraternity row where they do throw all the parties, but then there are houses that these kids actually live in. So because there are sorority people and like fraternity people that don't live in specific like fraternity sorority housing. They do live in these off-campus houses. Yeah. And what's kind of weird is like just the concept of a bunch of college students having to take care of a house is kind of crazy.
Are you like referring to like them just renting it out or like them owning it?
Them renting it out. Yeah, they're renting it out from the owners.
It's very common actually to do that, like depending on the area, like in like La Jolla.
No, but I don't think it's like, I think it's kind of crazy that so many people are sharing a space.
Yeah, like between
It's like it's a house meant for a family, and then 6 college students go and live in it, share a fridge. There isn't enough parking spaces for all the students, and these places are always very loud.
Yeah,
very loud, especially around here. Like it's like a neighborhood surrounding San Diego State where families do live here, old people do live here, and then it's college students who are partying. Which, granted, that is like what it comes with this neighborhood, but the fact that we have to resort to that, and they're paying a lot for all these bedrooms. What's so bananas is these houses are fully paid off. They were bought 30, 40, 50 years ago. They're very old. A lot of them aren't renovated. These kids are paying more than $1,000 for a room. They are making money off of these houses, and that's what's so predatory about this off-campus house living.
Well, because the landlords just want money, right? So it's like if they have
but they don't work.
But if they have the ability to be able to rent out at a higher price, they definitely will do it.
Yeah.
One of the places I interviewed to live in was this retired lady, okay? She had been gifted this house from her parents because they passed away.
Yeah.
So everything's paid off. And she's like, and then I was curious. I was like, because she was like asking me, she's like, oh, what are you like doing? Blah, blah, blah. And like, this is when I was like kind of like low key, not doing a lot of Pilates, but I did Pilates for 1 month.
Okay. Class pass, right?
Yeah. No, with Club Pilates. They had like a promotion going, and I did it for 1 month, and I mentioned, oh, like, I'm like kind of doing Pilates. I don't do Pilates. You do. I don't. And she was like, oh, I love that place. Like, it's so nice, blah, blah, blah. And then when she told me that her house is paid off, I'm like, am I paying for your Pilates? Like,
what?
I'm paying for your Pilates.
You're funding your bougie lifestyle.
And she seemed like the person that would entirely depend on us to make her income. And which, I mean, I get it. You know, you got to get what you can. But I was just like...
It's just predatory. Like, if you can charge each student $500 a month and still make money, why not just do that?
Yeah. No, she was going to charge each room like $1,300.
No, that's crazy. And that is like actually so unreasonable.
It had carpet. It had carpet everywhere.
Stop. That's gross.
And it wasn't even nice carpet. It was like some
dingy.
Like it literally felt like an animal's hair was like
stop it.
Rounded
not
in
y'all in
balls.
an animal shelter.
And then they had like green turf in the closet, and I was like, make it make sense.
For the third part of the podcast, we're going to be talking about the phenomenon of colleges admitting too many students. They're fully aware that they're doing this. They don't care, and we have to face the repercussions of their behavior,
which is no bueno.
Yes, it's kind of gross. It's stinky.
Yeah.
So what happens is, because they admit too many students, if there's no space on the campus, no space in these dorms, in these on-campus apartments, then they have to live off campus. But as a result of this, it creates safety issues for off-campus students because public transportation surrounding the university or towards some of this off-campus housing is not generally safe. And we have a news clip that I'm going to put in right now.
We have new photographs of a woman accused of slashing a sleeping passenger across the chest with a knife at an MTS trolley station. We followed this earlier in the week. Police said this person accused of slashing a 21-year-old man inside an MTS trolley car near the Nobel Drive station on Sunday. Just this past Sunday, the victim taken to the hospital, expected to survive. Police say this woman, estimated to be between 25 and 35 years old with black hair. You see the pictures right there, last seen wearing a red sweater and sweatpants as well as black sneakers. Anyone with information urged to contact police or Crime Stoppers, which is offering a $1,000 reward right now.
So as you guys saw, there was an incident on the last stop of the trolley in La Jolla. It's like a red line trolley that goes through San Diego. Rachel lived pretty much across the street from where this incident happened.
Like directly across. Like, not even like a 2-minute
And this
walk.
happened in supposedly like one of the safer areas of San Diego, towards this bougie neighborhood that's charging $3,600 for a 2-bedroom. Just the fact that a 21-year-old man was stabbed on the trolley, and it's safe to assume that they were a college student because of how young they were and the area that it happened in. It's not safe to take public transportation and to have to worry about that, and for the parents back home to go, oh my gosh, I like my kids are taking this trolley.
Because with at least like in La Jolla, a lot of the students depend on public transportation that are off campus to get to campus.
Yeah.
And they're not really left with other like resorts of getting to campus. Like, yeah, you could Uber, like, I don't know, Lyft, but that, costs money and stuff like that, right?
That costs as much as having a car.
Yeah. No, if not
More
more.
than, yeah.
So then students take the buses and the trolleys. And granted, I think the buses are relatively more safe, at least in La Jolla, but that's not always the case. This is just a very specific case of La Jolla. But the trolley is where issues really have started to come to be, because the trolley goes from UTC, goes actually through UCSD campus, then goes all the way to downtown.
But you said, I think you were telling me it wasn't always like that. Like the trolley expanded during COVID.
Yeah, so it's not that it expanded, it actually just opened during COVID,
like
2021.
Did it not go to La Jolla before?
It wasn't even constructed.
Oh yeah, I remember a couple years ago seeing people on Reddit were really mad that the trolley was coming to La Jolla because they were like, oh, it's going to bring on all this crime. And then it literally did.
No, like, because the issue is, like, this trolley connects from downtown all the way to La Jolla, and it will literally take people from downtown, like the homeless population and or crazy people, and bring them to La Jolla. And then the issue with La Jolla is, like, it's safe there relatively, right? But now we're having an influx of, like,
violent crimes.
Like, I've literally seen so many times of, like, people on, like, Citizens app, which, like, essentially is this app that, like, people, what does it do? Like, people
regular people can report crimes before the police,
Yeah.
like, essentially know that they're going on.
Yeah.
So the police report crimes, but then you could, like, witness a stabbing and then put it on the Citizen app.
Yeah. And so with the Citizens app, like, you'll literally, like, I remember seeing constantly, like, at least, like, a couple times a week of, like, woman with knife walking around.
Thousands of people in metropolitan cities here in America have the Citizen app, and then when an incident happens, a bunch of people are notified of that incident within the area that they're in.
Yeah. And, like, because the stabbing with the lady on the train, that's not, like, the only case of something like that happened. This is
just a very recent one in that area.
Like, in that area, there's been so many reportings of people, like, walking out with, like, a machete or walking around with, like, a gun or a knife or something. And, like
they have some kind of something illegal with them,
But they're also, like, I noticed in La Jolla, there's not really a police station, actually. I think I've, like, seen.
Yeah.
Like, at all. I think the only...
Is there security near these trolleys?
Okay, it's controversial. Like, there is security technically, but they're not, like, the security that are gonna, like bring out a gun and, like, save people.
I don't see the point of security, like, at all if they're not armed. Even at art museums, like, maybe that's a little much,
the only security on the trolleys is the people who, like, check your tickets and make sure they're, like, valid.
But that, I feel like it's just so weird how they don't check what you're carrying on, essentially, you know what I mean? Like, you could have anything in your bag. Like, you have a bomb with you.
Yeah.
I don't, like,
don't think that's scary.
But I mean, I just think it's kind of scary that you could just walk onto a train or whatever with anything.
Yeah.
You know, like, you could walk on with a loaded gun.
Yeah.
But see, that also factors into safety issues with universities too, is because universities didn't have safety precautions until all these shootings started arising.
Yeah.
Like at the Johns Hopkins University, where I did an internship at, they had an uptick in shootings there. So then they got security guards, quote unquote, around the campus. But these were college students with nothing on them. Like, they're not armed or anything. They're just wearing a security outfit and they stand at street corners. They're like, oh, like, we're making the students feel safer, but they're not.
No.
Which is kind of tough.
No, I feel bad actually for, like, the students, because, like, we're just victims.
There should be some sense of safety in, like, when you're trying to approach this public transportation that, like, gets students to and from campus. Like, this campus should be putting initiative towards student safety, and they're not.
And then the other issue, like, let's say you don't want to do public transportation, right? What do? You have a car, or you obtain a car somehow. Parking permits are really expensive. And that's another way the universities gain a lot of money on top of already everything. But the issue with parking permits is, like, these parking lots, they'll issue out a surplus of them. So then there's not even guaranteed parking.
Yeah.
And then for people who commute to, the schools.
You don't know if you're going to get a parking spot when you get to campus, and that's scary.
No, and like, it's like, what do you do? Oh, go on the train or the trolley and, I don't know, face some craziness?
It's a risk no matter what.
Or do you want to drive to campus and it's like, I'm
not going to class today.
No, literally, like I had this lab mate of mine for this one class I was taking who would be late all the time to class because he literally would be stuck trying to find parking.
Yikes.
And the only free parking for UCSD is in Gliders Port, which is like a 30-minute walk.
Oh my God.
And it's kind of, I don't know, crappy in the sense of like both options are bad, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like whether you live off campus, on campus, it's just really hard for everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess to conclude this episode about the housing crisis, specifically in San Diego for college students, it sucks. Like, we can't really say anything good about this. Mm-mm. The good thing that we can say is that we met because of this, and we've become besties since then. Like, we were at the club last night, and it was fun, But, like, we meet because of these dire, messed up economic situations, which is kind of tough. It brings us closer together, but because of what? Like, how everything has become so unaffordable.
Mm-hmm. I think another thing to kind of conclude up to is like there are pros and cons both to on-campus and off-campus housing. Mm-hmm. It's just you genuinely have to see what like suits your needs best.
Yeah, and what you can afford. You have to look at your financial situation. Should you just take the L and be a commuter and like live at home, which nobody wants to live at home in college. Like, you want to live on campus and live the glorified American college experience. And then if you live off campus, just off campus or dorm life, it's expensive. So you definitely need at least a full-time job because of how expensive it is. Like over $2,000 a month you're paying at both these universities, not including food that is required, like these meal plans. It's just insane, like these prices, and it's just inaccessible to students.
Choose your cards wisely of what option you want to do for on or off campus housing and make good decisions.
Low-key, we could do an episode. I feel like it'd be fun to talk about how to find housing that isn't on campus. You know what I mean? I feel like that'd be fun. We could talk about Craigslist scams, Facebook scams, and how to avoid, certain things. I know it's good to meet people in person, and you have to see exactly what you're getting. You have to meet the person you're going to live with. You have to see the exact unit, and just like safety precautions when you're looking for an apartment. If you guys want that, let me know. I feel like that'd be fun just to talk about how to move to San Diego. Even though we have a bunch of people here, it's fun, and it's like the best place to be in your 20s. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We have our amazing guest star, Rachel. We're both tired from going out last night, but we got it together. We went to the gym. We ate healthy today, and we had a lot of fun filming this episode and just ranting about the housing crisis, because we literally will spiral and talk about this for hours at night.
Yeah.
And then for the longest time, I was like, dude, let's just do a podcast episode about this, because we talk about this for hours. I feel like so many other people can relate to this.
And this is very common, these issues that we've explained today.
This is universal.
It's universal. It's not just like California or San Diego based. You will find this almost everywhere.
You know what's funny? You'll go out to the bar with like people your age and stuff, or you meet people that are your age, and then the big question is like, oh, where do you live? How much do you pay? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we're just so nosy. Like, how'd you find your place? Oh, I found it on Facebook. Like, I got lucky, or you know what? It's just kind of
like last
we're
night.
We're always talking about this, like, oh, like what part of San Diego did you end up in?
Because like San Diego here, it has like one of the biggest like housing crises actually.
Yeah.
Compared to like other places.
So it's kind of a bonding moment between all of us, and it's not a sleigh, but we make it a sleigh.
We go through despair together, and we bond through that.
Yes. All right. See you guys next time.
Bye.